Someone is brought into a room lit by candles. On one side sit people with authority. On the other stands a frightened neighbor. The charge sounds simple and impossible at the same time. You are the wolf that has been attacking us. That scene is the heart of the werewolf trials. It is what happens when a community's fear, its stories about the forest, and its local law all point at the same person. A werewolf trial was almost never about proving that someone could truly turn into an animal. It was about making sense of trouble. Animals were killed. Children were hurt. Bodies were found torn. Real wolves lived close to villages. People disappeared in woods that were hard to search. A village could not put a real wolf in the witness chair, so it looked for a human it could question and punish. The werewolf was a way to give fear a face. The time matters here. Most of these trials happened in late medieval and early modern Europe. It was a period of hard winters, war, sickness, hunger, and real wolf attacks. It was also a period when many people believed in the devil, in witches, and in people who could act with him. Churches tried to control what people believed. Local courts tried to control what people did. In a world like that, the idea that a person could run with wolves or call on wolves or behave like one did not feel far away. Often the beginning was very small. A child said they saw something in the trees that moved like a man but did not look human. A shepherd said a wolf attacked but did not flee the way wolves normally do. Someone noticed a neighbor who stayed out late near the edge of the forest. Sometimes the person already had a bad reputation. Maybe they were poor and lived alone. Maybe they had a skin problem. Maybe they were known for anger. All of that made it easier to believe that this person was not just dangerous, but not fully human. Then came questioning. These questions were usually not neutral. They were meant to confirm what people already suspected. A court might ask, "Do you go out at night? Do you meet others? Did you use a skin or a belt to change? Did the devil give you power?" This is the place where werewolf trials and witch trials look very similar. The story at the end was different. If the person was frightened enough or in pain or tortured, they might begin to answer in the way the court wanted. This is why so many confessions contain the same parts. The accused said they left the house at night. They said they put on a wolf skin or a belt, or rubbed on an ointment. They said they ran on 4 legs. They said they hunted animals or sometimes people. Then they said they could return to human form. That is almost exactly what people were already telling in local folklore. The court was not inventing a brand new werewolf myth. It was pulling details out of the stories people already knew. Why did courts accept those answers? Part of it was belief. Many judges and clergy really did believe that the devil could give people animal form or animal strength. Part of it was the need to restore order. A trial made fear official. It told the village that someone had been found and that power was working. Even if the true cause was a wild animal, or a criminal who got away, the community could still see a person punished. That created the feeling that things had been put back in place. Sometimes the accused really had done violent things. Some men in Germany or France who were called werewolves were also accused of murder or cannibalism. Today we might see those as crimes, as severe mental illness, or as people who were very isolated and dangerous. At the time, there were no such categories. There was only, he behaved like an animal. So a human crime was folded into an animal story. That made it easier for people to live with what had happened. The link with witch trials helps us understand the goal. In witchcraft cases, courts wanted to show that the community was protected from secret evil. In werewolf cases, courts wanted to show that the community was protected from secret violence. In both, the process was similar. Suspicion, leading questions, sometimes torture, confession full of local legend, sentence. In both, the real aim was not to prove magic. It was to restore control. It is important to talk about torture and pressure because it explains the rich detail in the old records. If a person is hurt, tied, or threatened, and then asked, "How did you change into a wolf?" they will describe a change. They will say they wore a wolf skin because people talked about wolf skins. They will say they rubbed on a salve because people talked about witches' ointments. They will say they met others because it is easier to admit to a group act than to say I did this alone. The court was collecting stories, but it was also teaching stories in the moment. One of the most famous examples of this is the 1589 case of Peter Stump in Germany. After torture, he said he used a belt to become a wolf and confessed to a long list of violent acts. We cannot know how much of that list was true and how much was forced out of him, but the pattern is the same. There was real fear. There was a ready-made werewolf story. There was a court that was willing to turn that story into law and punishment. So what were these trials really about? They were about fear of the forest and fear of the night. They were about hunger and missing animals. They were about making the church and the court look strong. They were about pushing people who did not fit to the edge. They were about turning private fireside tales into public verdicts. When a court wrote, "This man became a wolf," it stamped a folk story with official ink. There is another angle. Many of the people who were accused were on the edge of village life. They were outsiders, or they had illnesses people did not understand, or they behaved in ways that unsettled others. Someone who roamed at night talking to themselves. Someone who howled or had seizures. Someone who hurt animals. Today we might send that person to a clinic. Then, people could say, "He is a wolf." That is where the link to clinical lycanthropy becomes very sharp. A person today who says, "I am a wolf," can be treated. A person who said that 400 years ago could have been punished. These trials also tell us something about the power of stories and law. If a whole region talks about belts that change you, or ointments that make you run like an animal, then those objects will show up in court. People will confess to them. People will search for them. People will burn them. The story creates the evidence. That is true in witch trials and in werewolf trials. They also tell us something about timing. Many of these trials happened in hard years. Crops failed. Winters were severe. Wolves came closer to people. In those seasons, people told more stories about night creatures. When stories grow, accusations grow. A person who in a good year would only be called odd might in a bad year be called wolf. So when we read these old documents, what should we believe? We should believe that people were truly afraid. We should believe that some accused people had done real harm. We should believe that courts and churches were serious about protecting their communities. We should also believe that many details in the confessions came from pressure, not from reality, and that some people who were punished were simply sick, isolated, or different. In the end, werewolf trials show how quickly a community can take a shared story and turn it into law. They show how thin the line can be between "this person needs help" and "this person is a monster." They show how strong the werewolf idea was in those centuries, strong enough to sit beside witchcraft as something the authorities felt they had to fight. A good way to think about it is this. The werewolf myth began as a warning about people crossing boundaries. The trials show what happens when a whole community decides someone has crossed that boundary. Sometimes they were right to be afraid. Sometimes they were wrong. Today we can separate illness from crime much better than they could then. And that is the difference between a clinic and a candlelit room full of accusations.